AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she completely disregarded my boundaries. I, 32F, have always been close to my younger sister, Lily, 28F, but over the past few years, our relationship has become increasingly strained because of how controlling she can be. This all came to a head over the past year with her engagement and the wedding planning. Lily got engaged to her fiancé, Tom, about a year ago. From the beginning, she made it clear that she wanted an intimate, family-only wedding. I was thrilled. I've always loved smaller gatherings, and she asked me to help organize it. I agreed, happy to be involved, but I also have a full-time job that often requires travel, and I live about 3 hours away from my parents' house where the wedding would be held. About 2 months into planning, Lily started insisting that the wedding be at my house instead of the family's property. I have a modest 2-bedroom apartment and no outdoor space. I explained several times that I didn't have the capacity to host a wedding. There's literally nowhere for 50-plus guests to sit, no parking, and I don't have a large enough kitchen or bathroom facilities to accommodate her family and friends. She brushed this off every time, saying, "It's only a few adjustments. You can make it work." I tried to compromise by suggesting she rent a local hall or a small venue near my city, which would still be convenient for guests. She rejected it outright, claiming it would be impersonal and not as meaningful as having it at my home. I even offered to help coordinate vendors and decorations if she picked a venue, but she kept circling back to the idea that it had to be at my place. Then she started involving other family members. My parents took her side, saying, "It's your sister. You should just make it work." My mom even offered to pay for some of the accommodations to make it easier for me, which felt like they were trying to guilt me rather than actually considering my situation. My fiancé, we lived together, was supportive but frustrated. He reminded me that hosting a wedding in our tiny apartment would be chaotic, stressful, and probably ruin the relationship with my sister in the long run. Things escalated when Lily started making demands about decorations and catering. She insisted that I pay for a portion of the food and drink, even though I had already told her that my budget couldn't handle it. She also wanted the wedding to happen on a Saturday morning so we could have brunch and photos, but I told her it conflicted with my work schedule and the apartment cleaning. She ignored this and booked a photographer anyway, assuming I would just clear my calendar. By this point, I had had enough. I told Lily I could not host her wedding under any circumstances and that she needed to find a venue elsewhere. I offered to help in other ways, planning, decorations, attending the event, even helping with DIY projects, but I could not provide my home. She reacted very badly. She accused me of being selfish, unsupportive, and ruining her dream wedding. She even suggested that maybe I wasn't actually her sister if I couldn't make sacrifices for her big day. Her fiancé, Tom, was surprisingly quiet throughout all this. He seemed torn but didn't try to defend me, which hurt. The rest of the family started pressuring me to just give in because it was only one day, and family comes first. My parents said that refusing would be the ultimate betrayal, and even my friends who met Lily thought I should just host to avoid drama. I stood firm and said hosting a wedding in my apartment was not just inconvenient, but literally impossible. She eventually found a small venue a few towns over, but by then the damage was done. She barely spoke to me for months and only agreed to have me at the wedding because she needed me to walk her down the aisle. Our parents refused. At the ceremony, it was tense. She gave me cold glares the entire day, and most of the reception felt awkward. She didn't even thank me for helping organize decorations or coordinating the vendors. Since then, our relationship has been rocky. She communicates minimally and often with passive-aggressive comments. I don't want to cut her off entirely, but I also feel like I shouldn't have been expected to sacrifice my home, finances, and sanity for a single event. I keep asking myself if I was really being unreasonable or if my family and sister's reactions are just overblown. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding in my apartment, despite the pressure from her, my parents, and even some friends. Character count, 6,468. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, When do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding over a disagreement about the guest list. This is a long one, and I know it's going to make me sound like a monster, but I genuinely want perspective because my family is treating me like I committed an unforgivable crime. I, 29F, have a sister, Emma, 32F, who is getting married next month. We have always been close, but lately, tensions have been rising due to what I now see as differing values about family and boundaries. I'll try to give a full picture without making myself sound defensive, though I fear that might be impossible. So here's the deal. Emma is marrying someone who is lovely, but very close to a big extended family. Her fiancé's parents are extremely traditional and expect everyone to follow their protocols. Emma's wedding is going to be quite formal, with a strict guest list. She initially told me she wanted me to be involved in planning, and of course I said yes. We discussed a few things, including seating arrangements, colors, and the like, but the topic of the guest list became a sticking point. Emma invited almost everyone she and her fiancé have ever known, which, in itself, is fine. But she also included a lot of people I barely know, and more importantly, she added several of my exes, including one I had a messy breakup with that left me emotionally drained for months. She knew about the tension and trauma involved with some of these individuals. I brought this up politely, suggesting that maybe we could not invite the ones I had the most negative history with. Emma brushed it off, saying it wasn't a big deal and that she was allowed to invite whoever she wanted. I get that, but it was stressful for me to imagine sitting at a table with someone who had hurt me deeply. A few weeks later, my partner, 32M, and I received our invitations and noticed that one of my exes, Ben, was seated at the same table as me. I immediately called Emma and said, "I really can't sit at the same table as Ben. Can we move him?" She said no, firmly, and that I was being unreasonable for letting old grudges dictate the wedding arrangements. I tried to explain that this was about emotional safety, not grudges, but she was adamant. The day of the rehearsal dinner, the tension came to a head. Ben was already present, and I told Emma I would not sit at the same table as him. She got visibly angry, telling me I was embarrassing her in front of her friends and family. I tried to remain calm, explaining that I would rather skip dinner than be forced to engage with someone who had caused me real distress. She called me dramatic and stormed out. The next day, I made a choice that I now see as the catalyst for everything. I went to the wedding coordinator and asked if there was any way to adjust the seating chart to keep me and Ben at separate tables. The coordinator said that the seating was final and the day of adjustments would be chaotic. I realized that if I attended the wedding under these circumstances, I might have a panic attack or lash out publicly. I made the decision to sit down with my fiancé and Emma's fiancé and tell them I would be skipping the ceremony if the seating wasn't changed. My fiancé supported me, saying that my emotional well-being should come first. Emma found out about my ultimatum through a family friend. She was furious, calling me selfish and saying I had ruined all the careful planning she had done. She refused to speak to me for the rest of the day and barely acknowledged my presence at the wedding. My parents were caught in the middle, partly blaming Emma for being rigid and partly blaming me for causing drama. I stayed home during the ceremony, which was broadcast via live stream, and attended the reception briefly afterward when I heard that Ben had left early. Even then, the atmosphere was icy. Several of Emma's friends made comments about how family should support each other, and I felt like the black sheep of the entire event. My mother asked me why I couldn't just be the bigger person for one day, and I tried to explain that emotional trauma isn't something you can just ignore for a few hours. Since then, the fallout has been intense. Emma has mostly avoided speaking to me, and when she does, it's terse and cold. My parents are disappointed and keep bringing up how my actions tainted her big day. My fiancé continues to support me, saying I made the right choice for my mental health, but I can't shake the feeling that I may have overreacted. Part of me wonders if I should have just gritted my teeth and endured the discomfort, but the thought of being seated at the same table as someone who emotionally harmed me still fills me with anxiety. I've tried to reach out to Emma with apologies for the timing and the method of my protest, but she refuses to engage. Family members are split, with some saying I had a right to protect myself, and others claiming I prioritized my feelings over my sister's happiness. I feel trapped between wanting to preserve my relationship with Emma and staying true to my own boundaries. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to sit at the same table as my ex at my sister's wedding, ultimately causing tension and partial absence from the ceremony. I'm ready for brutally honest feedback because I honestly don't know if I handled this correctly or if I should have just swallowed my discomfort. Character count, 6,632. AITA for refusing to let my brother and his family move in with us indefinitely, even though my husband thinks I'm being unreasonable. I, 34F, have been married to my husband, Daniel, 36M, for 11 years. We have 2 kids, a 7-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. We live in a 3-bedroom house that's cozy but very functional for our family. I work full-time as a nurse, and Daniel works in IT. Our lives revolve around our children's schedules, work, and household routines. Our home is very structured, and while we love hosting occasionally, it's really designed for the 4 of us. My brother, Ryan, 32M, has always had financial instability issues. He has bounced from job to job over the past few years and often moves between apartments because of unpaid rent or conflicts with roommates. Recently, he lost his apartment, and his girlfriend, Clara, 30F, lost her job shortly after. They reached out to me, saying they had nowhere to go and asked if they could move in temporarily while they get back on their feet. I asked what temporarily meant, and Ryan said it could be a few weeks. I try to clarify that our home isn't huge, and having them and their 2 children stay long-term could be difficult. I offered to help them find a short-term rental, help with a deposit, or assist with job hunting. I said they could stay for a couple of nights while we arranged these things, but not indefinitely. Ryan and Clara immediately pushed back. They said that families should stick together and that refusing to let them stay was cold and selfish. Daniel immediately sided with them. He said that since they were family and had nowhere else to go, we should let them stay as long as they needed. I explained that our home is designed for our family and that adding 2 adults and 2 children would disrupt our routines, make space tight, and likely cause stress for everyone, including our kids. Daniel said I was overreacting and prioritizing convenience over helping family. Despite my objections, Ryan and Clara arrived with their belongings a few days later, expecting to stay indefinitely. At first, I tried to manage the situation. They stayed in the guest room, and their kids took over part of the living room. Within a few days, though, it became clear that temporarily had turned into a long-term expectation. They began leaving dirty dishes around the house, using our kitchen excessively, and raiding our fridge without asking. Clara started commenting on my parenting and telling me I was too strict with the kids. Ryan began leaving clothes and personal items all over the living room and bathroom. I tried setting clear boundaries. I asked them to clean up after themselves, respect our routines, and limit use of common areas. They agreed at first, but continued to ignore the rules. Ryan and Clara started expecting me to supervise their kids while they went out, sometimes for hours and often without asking. I reminded them that while I want to help, I cannot take care of additional children indefinitely. They accused me of being unsupportive and uncaring. Daniel again defended them, saying I was too controlling and that I was being mean by insisting on rules. It's been over 6 weeks now, and they have still not found another place. The tension in our home is constant. Daniel and I argue daily about what to do. Our routines are disrupted, my kids are picking up on the stress, and I feel emotionally drained trying to maintain order while also helping my brother and his family. I've tried helping them in ways that don't involve hosting indefinitely, researching short-term apartments, helping with job applications, and offering financial assistance for deposits. Nothing seems to satisfy them, and Daniel insists that we are morally obligated to let them stay as long as they need. Friends and family are split. Some say I am right to protect the stability of my home and enforce boundaries, while others say I should just let them stay because family should come first. I feel guilty because I want to help my brother, but I also know that allowing them to stay indefinitely would cause chaos and stress in our household. I feel trapped and frustrated, and the situation is affecting my mental health and family dynamics. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother and his family move in with us indefinitely, even though my husband thinks I'm being unreasonable and selfish for setting boundaries. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding because she invited her ex-boyfriend and made me feel like I was overreacting. I, 29F, have always been very close to my family, particularly my cousins. One of my cousins, Rachel, 28F, is getting married in a few months. For context, Rachel and I have been close since childhood. We've supported each other through breakups, school, and family drama. I was genuinely excited when she got engaged because I thought I'd get to celebrate with her, share memories, and be part of her special day. The issue started when I found out that Rachel invited her ex-boyfriend, Kyle, 30M, to the wedding. Kyle and Rachel dated for about 3 years, and they broke up roughly 2 years ago. The breakup was extremely messy. He cheated on her multiple times, lied about finances, and was generally manipulative. At the time, I was one of the first people she confided in, and I encouraged her to cut ties completely. I thought that was the end of it, but apparently not. When the invitation list came out, I noticed Kyle's name. I asked Rachel about it, and she said, "Oh, he's been really good lately, and I think it would be nice to have him there. It's not like I'm dating him again. He's just part of the family circle." I told her honestly that I was uncomfortable being around him because of how toxic he had been and because I know how he treated her. I also explained that I would feel awkward and anxious at the wedding if he was present. Rachel's response really hurt me. She told me, "You're being dramatic. It's been 2 years. You need to get over it. This is my wedding, not your playground of old grudges." I tried to reason with her, saying that this wasn't about grudges, but about my emotional safety and comfort. She accused me of trying to control her wedding and said I was being selfish for putting my feelings above hers. I suggested alternatives. I told her I'd be happy to celebrate in other ways, help with decorations, plan a bachelorette activity, or do something special for her leading up to the wedding. But I made it clear that I wouldn't attend the wedding itself if Kyle was there. She refused to change anything, insisting that he had a right to attend and that it was ridiculous for me to think otherwise. After our conversation, things escalated. She sent a group text to several family members saying, "It's sad that some people can't move past the past. I can't wait to celebrate with those who actually love me, not those who hold grudges." Several relatives reached out to me privately, saying I should just suck it up and be a good sport for the family. One aunt even said, "Rachel's wedding isn't about your feelings. It's about her happiness. Don't ruin it." I explained to them that my decision isn't about trying to ruin Rachel's day. It's about my own boundaries. I've had anxiety attacks in the past triggered by Kyle's presence, and I know that being in a room with him would be emotionally harmful. I also told them that I'm willing to celebrate Rachel in ways that don't involve me being in the same space as him. Rachel has since posted passive-aggressive things on social media about people who let petty past issues dictate family events and siblings and cousins who think the world revolves around their feelings. This has caused several family members to confront me and ask if I'm really willing to miss her wedding over an ex. I feel torn. On one hand, I love Rachel and genuinely want her to have a beautiful wedding and be happy. On the other hand, I cannot, in good conscience, put myself in a situation where I know I'll be extremely uncomfortable and anxious. I've tried compromise multiple times, helping with planning, celebrating separately, attending pre-wedding events, but she refuses anything that doesn't involve me being in the same room as Kyle. My husband, friends, and a few close relatives have supported my stance. They say that it's reasonable to avoid people who have caused harm and that setting boundaries doesn't make me selfish. However, I keep being told that I'm being difficult and that I should prioritize Rachel's happiness over my own discomfort. I've been stressed out about this constantly. The wedding is in 2 months, and family gatherings have become tense. I'm worried that if I stick to my boundaries, I will be labeled as dramatic or selfish in the family, which could lead to long-term tension. But I also know that if I attend, I will feel unsafe and possibly re-traumatized by being in Kyle's presence. So, AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding because she invited her ex-boyfriend and made me feel like I was overreacting. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her choice of maid of honor. I, 28F, have always been close to my sister, Jenna, 31F. We grew up in a small town, were each other's best friends, and always shared major milestones together. I've always supported her decisions, even when I disagreed quietly with some of them. She's getting married next month, and the entire family is excited. That is, until I found out who she chose as her maid of honor. Jenna picked her best friend, Mia, from college. Mia and I have known each other for years, and while we're not exactly enemies, we've never really gotten along. I've tried to be polite over the years, but Mia has this habit of making passive-aggressive comments during family gatherings, undermining me in subtle ways, and overall making me feel unwelcome. I brushed it off as small annoyances, but over time, they've added up. When Jenna announced Mia as her maid of honor, I was honestly hurt. I asked her privately why she didn't consider me, and her answer was that she wanted someone who could handle the stress of planning the wedding without being emotionally attached. That stung because, in my mind, being emotionally attached is exactly why I would be a great support for her. I tried to explain my perspective, but Jenna brushed it off and said she wanted things to run smoothly, which apparently meant having someone she considers more neutral in the wedding planning. Things escalated when Jenna asked me to help with the bridal shower. I agreed reluctantly, thinking I could at least support her without being directly involved in planning. During the shower planning, Mia took over almost every decision, from the theme to the guest list, often disregarding my suggestions. When I pushed back politely, Mia would make comments like, "Oh, you don't understand how this works," or "Maybe if you plan more showers, you'd know." By the third planning meeting, I was openly frustrated and told Jenna that Mia's attitude made me uncomfortable. Jenna's response was that Mia meant no harm, and I should just relax and let her handle it. At this point, I started considering not attending the wedding. I don't want to sit through an entire ceremony and reception where someone actively dislikes me being in the room. I expressed my concerns to Jenna again, emphasizing that it wasn't about jealousy or trying to control the wedding. It was about my mental well-being and feeling constantly undermined by her maid of honor. Jenna's reaction was much more defensive this time. She said I was being dramatic and selfish, and that if I refused to attend, it would hurt her deeply. I tried to compromise. I suggested attending the ceremony only, avoiding the bridal party events where Mia would be involved. Jenna said that wasn't fair because the wedding is for everyone to celebrate together, implying I was being unreasonable. At this point, I had to make a choice. Go and likely spend the day stressed, anxious, and in conflict with Mia, or skip it entirely to preserve my own mental health. I chose the latter. After informing Jenna I wouldn't be attending, our parents were furious with me. They said I was being selfish and letting petty issues ruin a family celebration. Some of my friends agreed, saying that I should at least be there for my sister on one of the most important days of her life. Others, however, understood my perspective, especially those who had been in situations where toxic dynamics made attending events unbearable. The family fallout has been significant. Jenna hasn't spoken to me much since I made my decision. She's posted on social media about how family should stick together no matter what, which feels like a public criticism directed at me. Our parents have suggested I write a letter apologizing and attending the wedding anyway. I've considered it, but feel like it would compromise my boundaries, and I honestly don't think it would fix the relationship with Mia or prevent me from feeling miserable the entire day. I've also heard through relatives that Mia is thrilled I won't be there, which makes me question even more whether my absence is justified. I keep replaying the past few months, thinking maybe I overreacted or could have handled things differently. On the other hand, I genuinely believe my mental health and well-being are valid reasons to set boundaries, and I feel like attending would be more harmful than helpful. I know it's a complicated situation. I don't hate my sister, and I do want to support her, but this dynamic with Mia is unbearable. I've considered attending virtually or sending a gift, but it doesn't feel like a proper substitute for showing up in person, which makes me feel guilty. So, Reddit. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her choice of maid of honor. AITA for confronting my brother about his parenting after an incident at my wedding. I've 33F, been married for a little over a month, and I feel like I'm stuck in a family drama I didn't sign up for. I need an outside perspective because honestly, I can't tell if I overreacted or if my brother is completely in the wrong. A bit of background. I have a younger brother, Jake, 28M, who has a 5-year-old daughter, Lily. He's been a single dad since she was 2. I love my niece to pieces, but my relationship with Jake has always been a bit tense. He's very laid back, sometimes to the point of being careless, and I've always found myself nervously trying to fill the gaps he leaves behind. My parents have a he'll-figure-out approach, so it often falls on me to make sure things get done. Anyway, my husband, Matt, 34M, and I got married last month. It was a medium-sized outdoor wedding with close friends and family. Jake was in attendance, and, of course, Lily came with him. Leading up to the wedding, I had specifically told him that Lily could not run around unsupervised. We had tables set up near the water, and the venue was on a property with some steep inclines and a pond. I told him multiple times, Lily stays with you or with the babysitter we hired. No wounding. Now, Jake has a history of being a little too relaxed with her. He's a wonderful dad in general, but he tends to trust Lily more than is safe in public settings. I didn't want a repeat of the time she nearly climbed onto the roof of my parents' house, so I thought I'd be explicit. Fast forward to the wedding day. I was busy with photos and the ceremony, and I trusted Jake to follow the plan. About an hour into the cocktail hour, one of our photographers comes running over, panicked, saying that Lily had wandered down to the edge of the pond and almost fell in. I sprinted over, and sure enough, Lily was standing at the water's edge, holding a glass of punch she somehow took from the table. She was fine, thankfully, and the photographer had grabbed her in time. I confronted Jake immediately. My voice was probably louder than it should have been, but I was shaking. I asked why he wasn't watching her and reminded him of all the warnings I gave. He rolled his eyes and said, "She's fine. I was watching her. You're overreacting. It's not like she fell in." I snapped back that it wasn't about whether she fell. It was about the fact that she could have, and that I had been extremely clear about boundaries. At this point, some guests were watching, and it turned into a bit of a scene. He muttered something under his breath and walked away with Lily. The rest of the wedding was awkward. Jake was cold to me for the rest of the evening. He barely spoke to Matt and I, and he was distant with Lily, which was unusual. After the wedding, I tried to talk to him, but he accused me of making a big deal out of nothing and said I was being controlling. I told him that I wasn't controlling. He just ignored explicit instructions, and it almost led to a disaster. He eventually hung up on me. A week later, my parents called me because Jake had been venting to them. According to them, I humiliated him in front of our family and friends, and he's still upset. They said that I should have just let it slide and that I ruined his day. They also said I might have upset Lily by yelling. I told them that Lily wasn't upset at all. She was happy playing at the table, but my parents insist I overstepped. I'm stuck feeling guilty because I genuinely don't want to damage my relationship with Jake or Lily. But I also feel like I did nothing wrong. I was trying to prevent a real accident, and Jake's behavior was irresponsible. I haven't spoken to him since the wedding, and it's been tense every time I see him in family settings. I've considered apologizing for my tone, but not for the content of what I said. But I'm worried that might seem like I'm admitting I was wrong, which I don't feel I was. So, Reddit. AITA for confronting my brother about his lack of supervision of his daughter at my wedding. Was I too harsh? Or was I justified in calling him out in the moment? Character count. 6,493 if you want. I can make an even longer version closer to 7,000 characters with more tension, dialogue, and family dynamics that make it feel like one of the viral AITA posts. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to help my sister-in-law plan her dream wedding because of how she treated me after I declined to be her maid of honor. I, 31F, have always tried to maintain a close and supportive relationship with my husband's family. My husband, David, 33M, and I have been married for 6 years. David has a younger sister, Emily, 29F, who has always been somewhat dramatic but charming enough to get away with it in our extended family. We've had a decent relationship over the years, though I've noticed she can sometimes be manipulative to get what she wants. Emily recently got engaged to her fiancé, Tyler, 30M, and immediately started planning a lavish wedding. I was excited for her at first because, honestly, I enjoy weddings and thought it would be fun to help. A few weeks after the engagement announcement, Emily asked me to be her maid of honor. I hesitated because I'm not particularly comfortable in a spotlight role, and I have a lot of work commitments that month. I explained that while I would love to support her in other ways, I couldn't commit to the full responsibilities of being a maid of honor. Her reaction was extreme. She cried, accused me of not caring about her happiness, and told me that I was breaking her heart because she had always imagined me standing next to her on the most important day of her life. I tried to explain again that I wanted to help in any way I could that didn't involve being maid of honor, like assisting with invitations, decorations, or finding vendors. She dismissed all of it and said, "You don't get it. Being maid of honor is not just about helping. It's about being there for me in every moment, and if you can't do that, maybe you shouldn't be in my wedding at all." I was shocked and hurt. I felt like she was guilt-tripping me into something I couldn't reasonably commit to. I explained to my husband that I didn't want to be manipulated or made to feel guilty for saying no. He agreed that my feelings were valid, but also pointed out that Emily is very emotional and that this might blow over if I stayed supportive in other ways. After that conversation, I tried to be involved in smaller ways. I offered to help her with wedding logistics from a distance, like researching venues or vendor options online, attending bridal showers, and helping with DIY decorations. She seemed to accept these offers at first, but soon started criticizing everything I did. She said that I wasn't creative enough, that my suggestions were cheap and tacky, and that I wasn't putting enough effort into her once-in-a-lifetime wedding. Every idea I presented was either ignored or dismissed, and she began texting me multiple times a day demanding updates, often in an accusatory tone. Things came to a head when she asked me to plan a full bridal shower by myself. I explained that I could help organize a smaller group activity or assist with a joint planning effort, but I couldn't handle the entire event alone due to work obligations. Her response was a long text message where she said, "I guess I should have known you'd let me down. You don't care about me, my happiness, or my wedding. You're selfish and unreliable, and now I'm going to have to do everything myself." She then unfollowed me on social media and started posting cryptic messages about people who are only there for themselves and fake family members who disappear when you need them. At this point, I felt like I was being punished for trying to maintain boundaries. I told her I would no longer be involved in planning her wedding because it was causing me stress and anxiety, and that I would support her in other ways, like attending the wedding and celebrating with her on the day itself. She went completely silent toward me for a week and then texted me a message saying, "If you don't want to be part of my wedding, fine. But don't expect any of us to care about your feelings when your time comes." My husband and I discussed it, and he agreed that Emily was being unreasonable and that my boundaries were appropriate. However, now other family members are asking me why I'm not supporting Emily like a good sister-in-law, and some have hinted that I'm being mean or unsupportive during such an important time. My husband has been very supportive, reminding me that it's okay to step back and that Emily's reactions are her responsibility, not mine. I'm still worried because I value my relationship with the family and don't want to be labeled as the villain or someone who doesn't care about family celebrations. But at the same time, I cannot allow myself to be guilted into doing something that makes me uncomfortable and overextends me, especially when Emily has been disrespectful and dismissive despite my repeated attempts to help. So, AITA for refusing to help my sister-in-law plan her dream wedding after she treated me poorly when I declined to be her maid of honor. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in with me indefinitely after she lost her apartment. Even though my husband thinks I'm being unreasonable, I, 35F, live with my husband, Mark, 37M, in a 4-bedroom house in a suburban area. We have 2 children, ages 8 and 5, and our lives are tightly structured around work, school, and activities. I work full-time as a teacher, and Mark works in tech. Our home is cozy and functional for our family, but it's not huge, and we already have a busy household with 2 kids, pets, and a full-time schedule. My sister, Amanda, 32F, has had a rough couple of years. She lost her job at a retail company during the pandemic, and she's struggled to find stable work since. Recently, she and her boyfriend, Jason, 34M, lost their apartment due to unpaid rent. She called me in tears, saying they had nowhere to go, and asked if she could move in with me for a while until she got back on her feet. I asked how long she meant by a while, and she said a few weeks, maybe a month, but it was clear she hadn't thought much about the timeline. I was sympathetic but realistic. I said that we could help, but they couldn't stay indefinitely. I offered to help them find a short-term rental, assist with deposits, help Jason find work, and even contribute a little financially if needed. I said they could stay for a night or two while we worked out these options, but I could not commit to them living here for an extended period. Amanda immediately pushed back. She said it was family, and family should help each other, and accused me of being cold and selfish. Jason said the same. Mark, to my surprise, sided with them. He said that since they were family and in crisis, they should be welcome in our home, and that I was overreacting by worrying about logistics and routines. I explained that it wasn't about being heartless. It was about maintaining a functional home and protecting the stability of our children's lives. Mark said I was prioritizing comfort over compassion and that I was being unnecessarily rigid. Despite my objections, Amanda and Jason arrived the next day with all of their belongings. At first, I tried to be accommodating. I set up the guest room for them and reminded them that our house has rules regarding chores, meal times, and space use. Within a few days, the situation became stressful. Amanda and Jason began leaving dishes in the sink, taking over our living space, and expecting our kids to entertain their own children. They started leaving laundry all over the house and rearranging things to suit their preferences. I tried to enforce boundaries calmly. I reminded them that our routines are non-negotiable, that they are guests and need to respect our space, and that they cannot expect me to take care of additional children full-time. They would nod, but immediately disregard these rules. Amanda started criticizing how I manage our household, saying I'm too strict, while Jason complained about my kids' noise, claiming our home was too chaotic. Mark continued to defend them, saying I was too harsh and making them feel unwelcome. He argued that it's a crisis and we should be flexible, ignoring the fact that flexibility was already built into the plan. A couple of nights while we helped them find housing. The tension grew worse as Amanda and Jason started inviting friends over without asking, using our bathroom for long periods, and expecting meals to be prepared for them. It has been over 6 weeks now. Amanda and Jason have still not found another place, despite my repeated efforts to help. I've assisted with job applications, researched short-term apartments, and even helped financially for deposits. Nothing has worked. Mark continues to say we should let them stay indefinitely because it's the right thing to do, while I feel trapped, stressed, and frustrated. Our routines are disrupted. My children are unsettled by the constant tension, and I feel like my attempts to help responsibly are dismissed. I've talked to some friends and family. Some say I am right to protect my home and mental health and set boundaries, while others argue I should just let them stay because family comes first. I feel guilty because I want to help Amanda, but I also know that having them here indefinitely would create chaos, stress, and tension that would negatively affect my family. I'm at a point where I feel emotionally drained and trapped between wanting to help and needing to protect my household. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in with us indefinitely after she lost her apartment, even though my husband thinks I'm being unreasonable and selfish for setting boundaries. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my brother stay at my house after he got out of rehab. I, 32F, have a younger brother, Jake, 28M. For context, Jake has struggled with substance abuse for most of his adult life. It's been really hard on my family and me. He's been to rehab multiple times over the last decade, sometimes successfully staying clean for months, sometimes relapsing shortly after. Our parents are elderly and live in another state, so I've been his main support person, though I've set boundaries because I can't babysit him constantly without it affecting my own life. 2 months ago, Jake completed another rehab program. This time, he told me it was serious, that he wanted to get clean for good. He even signed up for outpatient therapy and AA meetings. When I congratulated him, I felt proud, but also cautious. I didn't want to get my hopes up. A week after his discharge, Jake called me asking if he could stay at my house for a few weeks because he didn't have anywhere else to go. He said it would help him transition back into everyday life and stick with his program. I told him I needed to think about it. Here's where the problem begins. I know from past experience that having him live with me can be draining. He can be messy, he sometimes has mood swings, and I've had experiences where he relapsed while staying at my place. I love my brother, but I also have a busy job, a social life, and my own mental health to manage. I have a strict no-drug policy in my house. I told Jake I was proud of him, but I couldn't let him move in. I offered to help him find a sober living facility, cover some of the initial costs, and even go with him to meetings if he wanted. Jake got really upset. He accused me of not trusting him and said I was abandoning him when he needed me the most. He claimed I was punishing him for trying to get better. I explained that I'm not punishing him. I just know myself and my limits. I told him that if he stayed with me, I might end up enabling him without realizing it, or worse, enabling a relapse. He called me selfish and said I was letting him down in a way that no sibling should. He ended the call in tears, saying he didn't want to talk to me anymore. Our parents got involved after he called them crying, and now they're upset with me. They said that Jake needs family support, that I'm technically his home, and that he might relapse or hurt himself if I don't let him stay. I tried to explain my reasoning, but they keep saying I should prioritize him over my own comfort and boundaries. My friends have mostly been supportive, saying that I'm doing the responsible thing and helping him in a way that's sustainable, not just convenient. Since this incident, Jake has been staying in a cheap motel and going to AA, but I can tell he's frustrated and isolated. I've been getting guilt-tripped by my parents and relatives, who keep asking if I could just try it for a week or just let him sleep on the couch. Every time I mention boundaries, they make me feel like the villain. I love my brother, and I want him to succeed. I want to be supportive, but I also know my limits and that my mental health would suffer if I let him stay indefinitely. I've already sacrificed a lot over the years trying to help him, sometimes at the cost of my own stability. I can help him in other ways without inviting him into my personal space where I have a lot of responsibilities. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother stay with me after rehab? I feel like I'm protecting both him and myself, but now I feel torn between supporting him and enforcing boundaries. Edit. Some people ask for clarification about finances. I don't live rent-free. I have bills, a mortgage, and responsibilities. Letting him stay would create financial and logistical stress for me, which is part of why I suggested a sober living facility instead. Edit 2. For context, my brother has relapsed multiple times while living with me, even after promising to follow the rules. I genuinely want to help him succeed without setting myself up for burnout. Edit 3. I did check on sober living options, and he has the money for the first month, which I'm willing to contribute to if needed. This isn't about money. It's about the environment being safe and sustainable for him. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior toward my kids? This is going to be long, so I'll try to break it down clearly. I, 36F, have 2 kids, ages 7 and 10. My sister, Maya, 34F, has been dating her fiancé, Ryan, 38M, for about 3 years. Maya and I used to be very close, but over the last few years, things have gotten tense, mostly because of Ryan. Ryan has always been difficult. He has a very short temper, can be extremely condescending, and doesn't have much patience with kids. I tried giving him the benefit of the doubt at first, thinking maybe he just wasn't used to being around children. But over time, I've noticed him repeatedly making comments about my kids that I find hurtful and inappropriate. For example, at a family dinner about a year ago, my 7-year-old accidentally spilled some juice on the table. Ryan loudly said, "Are you serious? How can you be this messy at your age?" My daughter got embarrassed and went to our table silently. I tried to tell him privately that his tone wasn't appropriate, and he brushed it off, saying, "I'm just being honest. Kids need to learn to be responsible." I get teaching responsibility, but the way he says things is humiliating. There have been multiple incidents like this. He once criticized my son for how he drew a picture, saying, "That's not even recognizable. Are you even trying?" and laughed. Another time, he told my daughter she was too dramatic when she got upset over a scraped knee. Every interaction seems to have a sarcastic, almost cruel undertone. My sister always brushes it off, saying, "Ryan is just straightforward. He doesn't mean to hurt anyone." I disagree because my kids come home upset, and I see it in their behavior. The latest incident happened last month at a birthday party for my youngest. Ryan was there, and I noticed him hovering over the kids' games, telling them they were doing everything wrong. My son accidentally knocked over a stack of cups while playing a game, and Ryan loudly said, "Wow, you are hopeless. Can't you even do one simple thing right?" I intervened and told him to stop, but he just smirked and said, "I'm teaching them a lesson." My kids were clearly upset, and I ended up leaving the party early with them. Fast forward to now. Maya and Ryan are getting married in 2 months. She asked me to be a bridesmaid. I said I'd consider it, but I've been internally debating whether I can even attend given how Ryan treats my children. I brought this up with Maya in a very calm, non-confrontational way. I said, "I love you, and I want to support your wedding, but I'm not comfortable bringing my kids if Ryan's going to treat them this way. I'm also worried about being in the same room with him for several hours if he's going to behave like he has before." Maya's reaction was extreme. She started crying and said I was being ridiculous and controlling. She insisted that Ryan would behave and accused me of trying to turn the wedding into a battlefield. She said that if I didn't attend as a bridesmaid, I wasn't welcome to bring my kids, and if I didn't come at all, she might not invite me to the rehearsal dinner. I tried to explain that my decision wasn't about controlling her wedding, but about protecting my kids and myself from a hostile environment. She called me selfish and said I was choosing my kids over family, which she claimed was never the right thing. I ended up writing her a long message explaining that I love her, I want to celebrate her, but I can't in good conscience expose my children to someone who repeatedly belittles them. I offered to have a private celebration with her before or after the wedding, maybe a dinner or small gathering, but I wouldn't attend the main event if Ryan was going to be there. She didn't respond, but I later heard from our mom that Maya was very upset and has been telling friends and family that I'm making everything about me. Now my extended family is split. Some agree with me, saying Ryan's behavior toward my kids is unacceptable, and it's reasonable for me to set boundaries. Others are saying I'm being dramatic, and that it's a wedding, not a debate about child rearing. Some have suggested that I should just leave the kids at home and attend anyway, but I've realized I don't feel comfortable even being there with him present because of how confrontational he can be. I feel like I'm stuck between wanting to support my sister and protecting my children from someone who repeatedly disrespects them. I've considered attending the wedding without my kids, but I don't know if I could emotionally handle being in the same room with Ryan for several hours. So, Reddit. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior toward my kids. AITA for refusing to let my cousin move in with us indefinitely after she asked for help, even though my husband thinks I'm being too harsh. I, 32F, have been married to my husband, Kevin, 34M, for 8 years. We have 2 kids, a 6-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. We live in a 3-bedroom house that fits us snugly but comfortably. I work as a nurse, and Kevin works in finance. Our daily lives revolve around our kids' schedules, work, and household routines. We've built a system that works for us, and while it's far from perfect, it keeps our household running smoothly. My cousin, Lily, 29F, has had a rough couple of years. She lost her job during the pandemic, and since then has bounced between part-time jobs that barely pay enough to cover rent. Recently, she was evicted from her apartment due to missed payments. She called me crying and asked if she could move in for a little while until things get better. I asked what she meant by a little while, and she said maybe a month or so, but her tone suggested she didn't know and wasn't thinking long-term. I was sympathetic. I wanted to help, But I was also aware of our limited space and the need to maintain stability for our children. I told her we could help her find a temporary rental, assist with deposits, help her look for jobs, and she could stay for a night or two while we arranged those things. I explained that moving in indefinitely wasn't an option because our house is not set up for extra adults long term, and it would disrupt our routines and potentially affect our children. Lily immediately pushed back. She said, "We're family. Families help each other. I can't believe you'd turn me away in a time of need." Kevin, surprisingly, agreed with her. He said I was being too rigid and unsympathetic, and that since she's family, she should be welcome as long as she needed. I tried to explain that my concern wasn't about being heartless, but about keeping our household functional and our children's lives stable. He said I was prioritizing comfort over compassion and that I was overreacting. Despite my objections, Lily arrived a few days later with her belongings. Initially, I tried to make it work. She stayed in the guest room, and I tried to enforce boundaries regarding chores, use of common spaces, and respecting our kids' schedules. However, within days, it became clear that a little while had turned into an open-ended expectation. She began leaving dishes in the sink, taking over the living room with her belongings, and asking me to watch her dog during the day. She also expected me to supervise her job search and errands while I was already managing the kids, meals, and household chores. I tried to communicate calmly and clearly. I reminded her that she was a guest, that she needed to follow our house rules, and that our children's routines could not be compromised. She would nod, but immediately ignore the rules. She started criticizing how I managed the household, saying I'm too controlling, and often implied that I wasn't doing enough to help her. Kevin continued to defend her, saying I was too strict and that I was making her feel unwelcome. He argued that she's in crisis and we should be flexible, ignoring that we had already offered support that didn't involve her living here long term. Over the next few weeks, the situation worsened. Lily started inviting friends over without asking, leaving laundry all over the house, and expecting meals to be made for her. She even began using our car without permission. I tried to enforce boundaries again, but Kevin would contradict me, saying I was being mean and unhelpful. Arguments between Kevin and me became frequent and tense, and the stress started to affect my children. Our daughter has been more anxious and clingy, and our son has been acting out more than usual. I've tried other solutions. I helped her search for short-term apartments, offered to contribute to deposits, helped with job applications, and even found temporary childcare so she could go to interviews. Nothing has worked. She still hasn't secured another place, and she seems to expect to stay here indefinitely. Kevin insists that we should let her because she's family, while I feel trapped, stressed, and frustrated. I'm emotionally drained, and our home no longer feels like a safe or stable space for my family. Friends and other relatives have mixed opinions. Some agree that I am right to protect our household and maintain boundaries, while others say that family comes first and that I should just let her stay. I feel guilty because I want to help Lily, but I also know that her staying indefinitely would create chaos, stress, and tension that would negatively impact my family's mental health and daily functioning. So, AITA for refusing to let my cousin move in with us indefinitely after she lost her apartment. Even though my husband thinks I'm being too harsh and inflexible for setting boundaries. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she disrespected my late father's memory. I've been grappling with this situation for months, and I honestly don't know where I stand anymore. I, 28F, come from a family that's always been complicated, to put mildly. My father passed away when I was 16, which was devastating, and my relationship with my family since then has been heavily shaped by how we all handled his death. My sister, Emma, 31F, and I were always close growing up, but in the past few years, our relationship has become strained over issues I feel are fairly fundamental. Emma has been engaged to her fiancé, Derek, for about 2 years now. I was supportive at first, but the more I've gotten to know him, the less I've liked his behavior around the family. He's very controlling, not outwardly aggressive, but he has this constant need to assert himself and put others in uncomfortable positions. Small things, like making comments about our house or subtly questioning our life choices, always seemed off to me. I tried to brush it off because I wanted Emma to be happy. The first major red flag came during the engagement party. He cornered me to jokingly criticize how I handled my job and my apartment in front of other relatives. I was polite, but the comment stung, and I noticed Emma didn't defend me. She laughed it off, which I was willing to accept as her way of coping. But the tension between me and Derek only grew over the next year. He started sending subtle texts to Emma complaining about me, which she told me she felt she had to support him but didn't actually mean. The wedding planning started about 8 months ago. From the beginning, Derek had insisted on specific traditions and themes, which were fine, but I noticed something odd in one of our planning meetings. He openly expressed that he didn't want my father mentioned in any part of the wedding because it would make people uncomfortable. My father had passed nearly 12 years ago, and we all knew he was a huge part of Emma's life. She and I had often spoken about including him in the ceremony in some meaningful way, perhaps a reading, a mention in the vows, or even a small tribute during the reception. I was shocked and hurt, but Emma told me it would be just easier if we didn't bring it up. I tried to compromise, suggesting something small and subtle, like including his favorite flower in the centerpiece or lighting a candle in his honor. She kept saying, maybe later, maybe at a different time, but the wedding is next month, so there's really no later. Every time I brought it up, she would get defensive and say Derek is just uncomfortable with that kind of attention. I started to feel like my father's memory, which is sacred to me, was being erased to please someone who barely knew him. I also noticed Derek subtly blaming me for making Emma feel guilty about the wedding, which added to my frustration. A few weeks ago, I confronted Emma directly. I told her that I felt disrespected and hurt that my father would be completely ignored during such a milestone in her life. I explained that I was not asking for the wedding to revolve around him, just a small acknowledgement to honor his memory. Emma snapped at me, telling me I was being dramatic, that Derek didn't like me, and that I was overstepping my boundaries. She also mentioned that if I refused to attend, it would break her heart and make her family question my loyalty to her. Since then, I've been torn. On one hand, I love my sister and I want to support her. On the other hand, attending the wedding without any acknowledgement of my father feels like a betrayal of everything he stood for and what he meant to me. I finally decided to tell Emma that I would not be attending the wedding if my father's memory wasn't included in some way. My stance isn't about controlling her wedding. It's about honoring someone who is a central figure in both our lives. The response from her has been explosive. She told me I was being selfish and controlling, that the wedding is about her happiness and that my father is gone. So why does it matter now? She also made a comment about how Derek has been supporting her through stressful wedding planning while I've been difficult for no reason. My parents are split. My mother is sympathetic and thinks I'm right to want my father remembered, while my father's side of the family says I'm making a scene and causing unnecessary drama. Friends are divided, too. Some say I should let it go and attend. Others say my feelings are valid and I shouldn't compromise on something so personal. Since I made it clear I won't attend under the current plan, Emma has started sending passive-aggressive messages, like sending me wedding photos from planning sessions I'm not included in, or tagging me in posts about the wedding party. It's all making me feel more isolated and sad, because I was really looking forward to being part of her big day. I've considered giving in just to maintain peace, but I honestly feel like attending a wedding where my father is completely erased would make me resent both Emma and Derek forever. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she won't honor my late father's memory? AITA for refusing to give my parents access to my savings account after they insisted I pay for my brother's wedding and got offended when I said no? I, 27F, have always had a complicated relationship with my parents, Mark, 58M, and Linda, 55F. They've never been financially irresponsible per se, but they tend to view money in very traditional ways and expect their children to help out in ways that feel controlling. I've been independent since I turned 18, and I've worked hard to save money, both for emergencies and future plans like buying a house. I have about $45,000 saved in a joint savings and a high-interest account that I manage entirely on my own. Recently, my younger brother, Ethan, 25M, got engaged to his fiancée. He and his fiancée have been dating for about 3 years, and I was happy for them. The engagement announcement came with the usual excitement, but shortly after, my parents started dropping hints, then outright demands, about me contributing financially to the wedding. They initially framed it as a family effort and suggested I could help out with whatever you can. I assumed they meant minor contributions, maybe helping with a part of the catering or decorations, but the conversation escalated quickly. A few weeks after the engagement, my mom called me and said, "We've been talking, and we think it would be great if you could cover the bulk of the wedding costs. Ethan and his fiancée are young, and we want this to be a dream wedding. You have a lot of savings, so it makes sense for you to step up." I was stunned. I explained that while I wanted to help out in small ways, like maybe paying for the wedding cake or contributing a gift, I could not cover a large portion of the wedding because I'm saving for my future. I also reminded her that it's unreasonable to expect me to pay for someone else's wedding entirely when I haven't asked for help for my own expenses. This did not go over well. My mom got very emotional and said, "I can't believe you would think we're asking for too much. You're part of this family, and families support each other. Your brother is your only sibling, and this is about showing love and commitment. Are you really going to let him have a mediocre wedding just because of your own selfish little savings plan?" My dad backed her up, saying I was irresponsible and not family-oriented for prioritizing my savings over Ethan's wedding. I calmly told them that I would not be giving them access to my savings account and that they could not expect me to fund someone else's wedding in full. I emphasized that I would be attending the wedding and celebrating with them, and that I was happy to contribute in ways that fit within my budget, but I would not be financially responsible for an entire wedding. My parents went silent for a moment. Then my mom said, "I can't believe you would think money is more important than family. We trusted you, and you're basically saying you don't care about Ethan's happiness." Things escalated further when my dad sent me a long text later that night saying, "You're being incredibly selfish. You've been spoiled with everything handed to you, and now you're refusing to help your brother have the wedding he deserves. I hope you're proud of yourself. I would never have expected this from you. If you can't act like a responsible adult, don't expect any inheritance or family support when you need it." I didn't respond. I felt blindsided by how quickly they turned this into an attack on my character rather than a conversation about what was reasonable. I consulted with my husband, who agreed that my parents were overstepping and that I had every right to control my own finances. He suggested I set firm boundaries and not give in to guilt or threats. I also tried to communicate with my brother directly. I told him I wanted to support him in his wedding and would be happy to help in practical ways, researching venues, helping with decor, attending events, but I couldn't contribute a large sum of money. Ethan seemed frustrated, but eventually he said he understood, although I could tell he was disappointed. After my refusal, my parents stopped speaking to me for a week. When we finally had a family dinner, my mom accused me again of being heartless and selfish and said I had destroyed family unity. My dad said I was choosing money over people and questioned whether I even cared about the family at all. Some relatives have taken sides, with my aunt saying I should have done the right thing, and my cousin saying I made a big mistake letting money dictate your morals. Despite the tension, I have maintained my boundaries. I'm attending the wedding and participating in ways that I can afford, but I refuse to hand over my savings or let my parents manage any of my money. I also feel like they're manipulating me by conflating my refusal to give them money with being selfish or disloyal. I want to support my brother, but I also want to maintain financial independence and not let myself be guilted into giving money I work hard to save. I've discussed it with a few close friends, and they've told me I'm absolutely right to protect my savings and set boundaries. But the family pressure has been intense, and I feel torn because I care about family relationships and want to avoid long-term resentment. I'm trying to balance helping where I can without compromising my own financial security, but my parents are treating this as a moral failing on my part rather than a reasonable decision. So, AITA for refusing to give my parents access to my savings account after they insisted I pay for my brother's wedding and got offended when I said no. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé plan my wedding because I think he's being controlling. I, 28F, am getting married next summer, and I've been dreaming about my wedding for years. My fiancé, Jake, 30M, has been amazing and completely supportive of whatever I want. We've mostly kept the planning to ourselves because I like things done a certain way and wanted to avoid drama. My sister, Megan, 32F, is engaged to Tom, 33M, and they've been together for 5 years. They've always been a little overbearing when it comes to helping with family events, but I never thought it would get this bad. A few weeks ago, Megan called me and said she and Tom wanted to help plan my wedding. At first, I thought she just meant like coming along for dress shopping or giving opinions, which is fine. But when I spoke to Tom, it became clear he wanted to be in charge of everything, including the guest list, seating arrangements, and even which flowers to use. He said he had great experience because he had helped plan his cousin's wedding. I tried to politely decline, saying Jake and I have it mostly figured out, but Tom insisted. He said, and I quote, "I just don't want your wedding to be a disaster. You need someone with vision." I was shocked. I tried to explain that my wedding is something Jake and I want to reflect our personalities, not someone else's idea of perfection. Tom started listing all the ways he thought our plan was wrong. The venue, the catering, even my choice of bridesmaids' dresses. Megan backed him up, saying, "You're just stressed. Let's handle it. We know what's best for you." I drew a firm line. I told them both that I appreciate their input, but the final decisions are mine and Jake's. Tom laughed and said I was being ridiculous and overreacting, and Megan seemed torn. She said she understood, but also that she didn't want to upset Tom. A few days later, Megan sent me a long text saying that if I don't let Tom help, she doesn't want to be involved at all. She said it would be too stressful for her to attend or participate if she couldn't help him control things. I was devastated. My sister and I have always been close, and I can't imagine my wedding without her. But I also can't give someone that much authority over the day that's supposed to be about me and Jake. I talked to Jake about it, and he was supportive, saying, "This is your day. If Megan and Tom can't respect your boundaries, that's on them." We even offered compromises, like letting them host a small part of the celebration or do a pre-wedding party. But Megan said no. She would feel left out and would only be happy if Tom was essentially running the wedding. Now, a week later, Megan hasn't spoken to me, and Tom keeps texting suggestions about my wedding, despite my asking him to stop. I finally sent a message saying that if he continues to push his opinions, I will have to limit contact until after the wedding. Megan called me afterward, crying, saying I'm choosing him over her, and that I'm being selfish. She accused me of ruining our relationship. Honestly, I feel terrible because I love my sister and don't want to fight with her, but I also feel strongly that giving Tom control over my wedding is not acceptable. I try to set boundaries politely and offer alternatives, but it seems like nothing works. Jake says I'm in the right, but I can't help feeling guilty for the rift it's causing with Megan. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé plan my wedding. AITA for refusing to let my in-laws move in with us indefinitely, even though my husband thinks I'm being unreasonable. I, 33F, have been married to my husband, Josh, 35M, for 9 years. We have 2 kids, a 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. We live in a 4-bedroom suburban house. It's comfortable for our family, but not exactly spacious. I work as a graphic designer from home, and Josh works in construction. We both have busy schedules, and our household runs on a tight routine that works for us. A few months ago, Josh's parents, Linda, 62F, and Greg, 64M, approached us with a problem. Their house had developed significant structural issues, and repairs would take months. They asked if they could move in temporarily until their home was safe to live in again. I was sympathetic. I offered that they could stay for a couple of weeks while they arranged temporary accommodations like a short-term rental or extended stay at a friend's house. I also offered to help with research, finances for temporary lodging, or anything that didn't involve them living with us indefinitely. Josh immediately said we should let them stay for however long they needed. I explained that our home was not equipped to handle 2 additional adults indefinitely, especially with our kids' routines, work-from-home setup, and limited personal space. He said I was overthinking it and that family should come first. I tried to clarify that I was not refusing to help them. I was willing to support them in ways that wouldn't disrupt our household permanently. Linda and Greg arrived a few days later, expecting to stay as long as necessary. Initially, I tried to be welcoming. They stayed in the guest room, and I tried to be flexible about meal times and shared spaces. Within the first week, though, the situation started becoming difficult. They would leave dishes in the sink for days, take over the living room with their belongings, and constantly rearrange things to suit their preferences. They expected me to cook meals for them, do their laundry, and accommodate their schedule, all while I was trying to work from home and care for the kids. I tried setting boundaries. I asked them to clean up after themselves, respect our household routines, and limit their use of common areas. At first, they agreed, but quickly started ignoring the rules. They criticized how I manage our home, suggesting that I was too controlling and unwelcoming. Greg would make offhand comments about my parenting, implying I was too strict, while Linda would complain about the way I run the household, saying it was too rigid. Josh continued to defend them. He would say I was too harsh and that they were in crisis and needed our support. He told me I was prioritizing comfort over compassion and that I needed to be more understanding. I explained that I wasn't refusing to help them at all. I was just trying to maintain a functional household for my family while still supporting them in practical ways. He countered that our home should be flexible because family comes first. After a month, the situation became untenable. Our daily routines were completely disrupted. The kids were picking up on the tension, and I noticed that my daughter had become unusually anxious and my son was acting out more frequently. I was exhausted from managing my own responsibilities, the household, and their expectations, while Josh still refused to enforce any boundaries. Linda and Greg began inviting friends over without asking, monopolizing the kitchen, and making plans that directly conflicted with our schedules. I attempted to find alternative solutions. I helped them apply for temporary rentals, researched assisted living options for the repairs on their home, and offered to cover a portion of the cost for short-term accommodation. Nothing seemed to satisfy them. They became passive-aggressive, hinting that I was selfish and accusing me of not caring about family. Josh still insisted that I was being unreasonable for not wanting them to stay indefinitely. We've now been living like this for almost 2 months. My stress levels are through the roof, the kids are unsettled, and my relationship with Josh is suffering because we fight almost daily about boundaries and what family support means. I feel like I'm being painted as the villain in my own home for wanting to maintain order and stability. I've tried to compromise and help in ways that don't involve them living here permanently, but Josh refuses to enforce limits and keeps framing me as heartless. Friends and relatives are divided. Some say I am right to prioritize my household and protect my family's mental health and stability. Others say I should just let them stay and that family comes first. I feel trapped, guilty, and resentful, but I also feel that giving in to their indefinite stay would destroy the environment I've carefully maintained for my children. So, AITA for refusing to let my in-laws move in with us indefinitely, even though my husband thinks I'm being unreasonable and selfish for setting boundaries. AITA for refusing to let my in-laws move in with us, even though my husband says I'm being selfish. I, 32F, have been married to my husband, Jason, 34M, for 8 years. We have 2 kids, 6 and 3, and live in a 4-bedroom house in a suburban neighborhood. Our life is busy but manageable, and I work part-time while Jason works full-time in a demanding job. The issue started a few months ago when Jason's parents, Linda, 60F, and Frank, 62M, came to visit. During their visit, they mentioned in passing that they were considering downsizing from their large house because they were getting older and wanted to be closer to family. At first, I didn't think much of it. I assumed they were just exploring options and that they would find their own place. A couple of weeks later, Jason brought up the idea of them moving in with us temporarily while they looked for a new house. I was taken aback. I explained that our house is already busy with 2 young kids, our schedules are hectic, and we rely on our routines to keep things running smoothly. I also pointed out that our basement, while finished, isn't really suitable for long-term living for two adults. They would have to essentially take over the common areas if they moved in, and it would disrupt everyone's daily life. Jason seemed frustrated with my hesitation and said, "Come on, it's just temporary. They're family, and they need us. We can make it work, and it would be a big help for them." I told him that while I love his parents and want to help, I don't feel comfortable having them move in. I explained that our kids' routines would be disrupted, my own space and privacy would vanish, and the tension of living under the same roof with them could become overwhelming. I also reminded him that they could consider other options, like renting a nearby apartment or staying in a short-term rental, which wouldn't affect our household as much. Jason's response made me feel blindsided. He said, "You're being selfish. This isn't about your comfort. It's about helping family. You've always said you want to have a close family, and this is your chance to prove it." I try to explain that helping doesn't have to mean cohabitating. We can support them financially for temporary housing, help them move, or spend more time with them, but I cannot compromise our household stability. The conversation escalated over the next few days. Jason started bringing up examples of friends who have multi-generational households and how normal it is for families to live together. He suggested that if I really cared about family, I would find a way to make it work. I told him that my concern isn't about caring for his parents. It's about maintaining boundaries and a functional home environment. He countered by saying, "You're putting your comfort above their needs. That's not what family does." Things got even more tense when I tried to discuss alternative solutions. I suggested we could pay for a short-term rental, help them declutter their house faster, or even consider them moving into our neighborhood so we could see them more often without them living with us. Jason dismissed all these options, saying, "That's not the same as having them here. You're trying to avoid responsibility." The conflict has started to affect our marriage. I feel frustrated and unsupported because I'm being told I'm selfish for having reasonable boundaries. Jason feels hurt and accused me of not valuing family enough. His parents, who don't know the full extent of our disagreement, have mentioned casually that they hope to move in soon, which puts additional pressure on me. Some friends and family have weighed in. My parents said I'm right to protect my household and that boundaries are important. Jason's sister, however, has told him that I'm being cold and inconsiderate because living together would help his parents and strengthen family bonds. I am genuinely torn. I want to support my in-laws and be a loving daughter-in-law, but I also value my household stability and my own mental health. I've tried compromise and suggested multiple alternatives, but Jason sees any refusal as a personal attack or lack of family loyalty. I don't want to create long-term resentment with my husband, but I also can't justify inviting two adults into our home in a way that will disrupt our family life for an indefinite period. So, AITA for refusing to let my in-laws move in with us, even though my husband says I'm being selfish. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.